Plug in that lava lamp and fire up your floppy disks. You've landed on the Gen X Files. While you do your best to keep your Tamagotchi alive, these guys will work to untangle the phone cords.
I'm going to have some fun tonight. I'm going to call the 7000 party line. Hope you're there.
Here's Jason Blank, Sean Knowles, and Greg Minka.
All right, well, we've got things rocking and rolling. We haven't done a Gen X Files recording in a long time, so thought we'd try something different. We're going to do a video and audio recording of our podcast, joined, of course, with Sean and Greg. A good day. Great to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I missed you guys.
Exactly.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I was just telling the guys here, we've got listeners all around the world. Slovakia, I see we have one in Asia, I noticed, and Drumheller for some reason. I don't know why, but
So we're not huge in Japan yet. I mean,
not yet. We're
that's
working on
cool.
it. So we thought we'd start off the 2025. We're going to talk film, and we're going to talk theaters, because we live here. Greg and I live in Drumheller. Sean lives in Stettler, and we have here in Drumheller have a single screen theater. The Napier Theater has been around in Drumheller for ever. This actual building has been around since 1956, I think. The Jewel Theater is another one in Stettler that's been around that long, although right now, unfortunately, not open to the public, but hopefully soon. But
it is for sale.
It is for sale.
And I have faith in it because it's survived a fire, and it's come back. So it has a lot of history there, and I just, cinema is so important to towns.
Yeah.
I have this bad feeling that it's just disappearing.
Well, and that's where we're going to go with this is, all of us kind of grew up with the single or double screen theaters. We didn't grow up with these big super theaters with the tilted chairs and surround sound and stuff like that. Like, we were lucky if we had Dolby surround sound or Dolby stereo sound in some of our theaters that we grew up in. So going down that, one thing that really kind of tugs at my little heartstrings is that my little girl, she's 9 years old, and she will not really get that cool cinema theater experience that we had, because, I can remember times where we would line up outside waiting for the movie, and now that's not happening anymore.
Yeah, I kind of like it that you can go into your app, you can get your ticket, pick your seat, and you don't have to be there 2 hours before. But I remember going to see The Dark Knight and standing in line for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and still not getting a good seat. And the same thing when we went to go see Lord of the Rings. Now, I don't know if that's nostalgia, but it just seemed like part of the process, standing in line. I don't know, but it was just, you had to be prepared because you don't want to miss the trailers.
Well,
I never want to miss the trailers.
And that's the part of it too. Like, for us to watch a film back then, the only way that we knew something cool was coming was you had to be in the theater to watch the trailers to see what movies were coming out next.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's something for sure about the feel and the smell and the noise in behind the doors. A side comment, but related, I think. I was in Leduc last week, and I went over to my best friend Troy's house, and we watched The Prestige, and so yeah, I love that movie. Whole other topic, but anyways, went and got popcorn from the local Leduc theater, right? And just walking in, and that theater's been around for a long time. Gosh, I remember. Well, I remember you talk about lining up. I went to line up 4 nights in a row for Return of the Jedi with my little Return of the Jedi book that I read as I was in line. Not many people in line. I was the only guy, but I wanted to be there, get my tickets. But yeah, you walk in the theater and it's the sound and the popcorn and the experience. Like it is especially small town. The small town feel for sure at theaters. Yeah.
And because I grew up close to you in Millet, we went to Leduc a lot.
Yeah.
Like I saw Desperado there. I saw Universal Soldier. I walked out because there's no way in hell that Jean-Claude Van Damme would ever beat Dolph Lundgren. I walked out disgusted, even though.
But but you did
I know,
sit
it's a
through to
movie.
the end of the film, though, right?
I mean, I rented it when it came on a VHS.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
I just stood up and said, "This is a lie," and I know.
Right. Everybody go home. Everybody go home.
I was like, "Where the hell is Sean going? This is ridiculous." But it was a cool experience. I really do miss that feel. I love the Statler Theater because it has that old feel with that
Oh,
the gradual
absolutely.
slope,
Yeah.
the one screen. They did upgrade the sound system, but it just there's that feel of a theater. I just really miss it. It brings that's childhood. That it feels like childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no, it's a beautiful theater. Just a quick side thing about I gotta say it. Leduc Theater with the old owner was very like very gruff. Gruff is probably the right word, but I remember I was not being the most honest when I got into Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? One of the very first PG-13 movies, right? And he scared me, and I got right up to it, right? And he's like, and I'm sure in my memory his arms were crossed, right? He's like, "How old are you?" And I went, 14. And he goes, "How old are you?" And I went, 13. And I backed down, right? And he still gave me a ticket. Enjoy the show, but yeah, it was scary. But
Well, here's a little cool side note for me because at the Napier Theater, I knew the owner, Jeff Larson, that had the theater for a long time, and me and him actually became really good friends over the years. And because I worked across the street at the time, it was Mom's News, and so we would talk all the time and talk about movies and things like that. So he actually sold the theater once. And then came back and bought it. But his last date before selling the theater, he still had the old reel-to-reel camera up top as the projector, as well as the big platter. So Jeff is also a movie collector. Like, he has so many movies on film, it's crazy. So he invited us to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater, and there was about 8 of us in the theater, and you had the best seats. Like, you were sitting right in the middle of the Napier Theater watching Raiders as and that's an experience I'll never forget, because first of all, it was on film, and secondly, you had the whole theater yourself, and it just kind of felt like the time had turned back to when that show came out, when that movie came out. So then Jeff bought the theater again, and I had the pleasures of helping him move. I tell you, moving film.
Me too.
Exactly.
Me too.
Moving film is heavy. And so he built a beautiful theater at his house here in town, and, got to watch. And it was like when you walked into his theater at home, it was like walking into a movie theater. Like, he had the theater seats, he had the screen, the cameras, everything. And I think he's probably got the same now in Strathmore, because he still owns a theater down in Strathmore. He sold the one here in Drum, but that's that experience. It's just too bad that and thank goodness the Napier's still here, and hopefully somebody does take the Jewel, because my daughter now, Chloe, she loves going to watch a movie in the theater, and you can get your movies so quickly now. Like, it'll release in the theater, and then boom, 2 weeks later or a week later, it's on your TV, which I think is I don't like that. I honestly don't, because these single theaters, these independent theaters, they need to be able to generate that income. Well, if you can sit at home and watch, they're not going to go to the theater, and that's the bad thing about it.
Well, I mean, there's a lack of anticipation out there because of that. And I think another causation too is like these single screen theaters with these large companies. They have to sign on the movie for like a minimum 3 weeks, and if you have one screen, what are you going to do? I mean, the first week's gonna be awesome because it's a great movie, and then for the next 2 weeks, it's very, very low. And I think the other thing too, and this isn't me degrading cinema at all, but new movies just aren't as good. Like, when you think about this year or last year, how many movies were you like really stoked to see? Where before, like when we were kids, because that's all we had, and we had B movies at the video store, which was awesome. I always find the worst movie to rent, but you would like, okay, mark on your calendar. I'm going to see this movie. I'm going to see this movie. Or you go into the paper and you would sign it, or you would circle the ones where you're going to see
Yeah.
and pick
Yeah.
your show times. And you don't really do that anymore. I think this
Uh-huh.
year, I mean, we're really looking forward to the new Mission Impossible, and I can't remember what else, but that only two, that and Avatar, I think, really,
Yeah.
and maybe a couple others, but nothing like before where you're like, okay, when am I watching in April? When am I watching in May? When am I watching? It was like it was a huge thing, and now it doesn't feel that way, right?
Yeah. It's funny you talk about circling in the paper, what movie. Our phone number was very close to the phone number. My mom and dad's house phone number was one digit off of the theater in Leduc. So yes, we would get calls at home for people like surprised when my mom or dad would pick up the phone and say hello. They'd be like, what movies are playing, right? And so we would get calls like that, because I remember dialing the number, it was 986-2728, and you'd listen, and coming Friday, and of course, of course, the whole Seinfeld thing, you can't help but have that come into your brain about when Kramer started doing movie phone. But we would get random calls like that. It was pretty funny. And side comment too, Jason, totally agree with you about seeing stuff on the big, like to see Raiders. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Before Force Awakens, Jeff played Star Wars Empire and Jedi, right? And me and Evan, my son, he's seen Empire before, Star Wars before, all of them before, but to see it on the big screen, it completely, especially, it was special edition, but still, yeah, what a thrill to watch it with your kids.
Yeah. Well,
and film.
And the film, exactly. That's where I was going to go next, Sean, was, and we were talking about this before we started, is, to watch it on film too. The digital side is great, but the film, it just seems, I don't know. Is that because of our generation? Like, is that we grew up with that film? So is that why we love it so much? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it was our form of entertainment, like our version of TikTok, but instead of 10 seconds, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, most of the movies growing up, and if you look back a lot of your movies, they're 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They weren't 2 hours, they were 90 minutes. So we either have no attention span or we have too much. I don't know where we're supposed to be. But I don't know. I can't answer that, because a lot of newer movies also feel a little dead inside, like there's no heart and soul to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, the creativity doesn't seem to be there. Like, we were talking about this the other day, and, I was talking with someone here in town about, even television. Like, you used to have 3 channels, and we would wait to watch these certain shows on 3 channels. Well, now you've got Netflix and Apple and Prime and all these guys. And then you still got the 16 channels or the 150 channels you have on cable. So even film now, like even like the B movie titles and even C movie titles on Netflix, like they're just being produced for Netflix. They're not even getting to even an independent theater, where that's where you would see these beat cut movies that we'd eventually see at the video store. So that's where I think, the creativity has kind of disappeared too, is because, that's all gone digital. It's all gone to your Netflix, your Apple, and you have to really search hard to find those nuggets. Whereas before, those nuggets seem to be at the theater every week.
Or you just walk into the video store and discover them because you're like, that looks cool.
Yeah.
That's how there's this really terrible horror movie I found, or like a creature feature, because those are the best. It was called Frankenfish, and it was from like 2007. And I'm like, this is actually a good movie. I'm enjoying this. But you couldn't do that now, because it needs to be guaranteed. And the budgets are so ridiculous that they have to perform so well that there's no margin for error.
Yeah.
But yet there's so many writing errors in these movies. And I don't mean like phonetically. I mean just terribly.
Yeah. Well, here's another aspect we can look at too is, and that's something that our kids will never really get the pleasure of. And I think we've talked about it before on this show is, the going on a Friday night to the video store and picking out your films. And honestly, I think it would make sense and it would be a great idea for people to reopen a video store with DVDs and or digital copies or however you have to do it, because that's where you find these nuggets. That's where you find these movies. Like one for me, for instance, Empire Records. Like I never saw it in theaters, but I love that movie. And when I worked at the music store, the reason I wanted to work at the music store is because I watched Empire Records. And I said, this would be a really cool job. And now my job is to play music every single day on the radio. And
That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And it's just, you get your love. Like I loved that movie so much that I said, I've got to work in a record store someday. And I did. And now I get to play music every day. But the kids don't get that attachment now. Like I was watching on the TV with my daughter, and, she was watching this guy talk about 15 different restaurants he wants to try in his hometown of Austin, Texas. And they look at that as entertainment. And that to me is not entertainment. Like, to be enveloped in a story, in a film, in a movie is so much more than watching a 1-minute TikTok or a 10-minute video on these guys going to restaurants. So, how do we teach our kids and get them to make sure that they don't miss out?
You just show it to them. We made the kids sit through Harry and the Hendersons. Still an awesome movie.
It is.
And Forrest Gump, and they were like, "Oh, we don't want to watch this. Is stupid." And they realized what storytelling looks like. And I'm not saying modern movies don't have good storytelling.
No.
Some of them do. Some of them are magnificent. In fact, for inventiveness, there's a movie coming out here in the next couple months. And it looks funny because it's campy, but a big movie. It's called Death of a Unicorn.
Yeah,
Have you seen the trailer for it?
I have. Yeah, actually, yeah.
But that reminds me of the campy stuff from when I was a kid, because that's how I discovered Evil Dead 2,
Yeah.
which is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And you run into gems like that. It's good to see movies like that coming out because they're actually bringing back writing.
Well, and that's the big aspect of it too. Like the creativity's got to be there because, I want my kids to have the Raiders, to have the Star Wars, to have those movies that they can talk about. Like me, for me, a big one for me is The Matrix. I just loved the way that your mind was just completely bent with that movie. And I want my kids to have those movies that they can attach to themselves and say, this is my era's movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you think other than like Avatar, for in the last 10 years, a movie that someone can say this is the movie of my generation in a genre?
Yeah.
And that's they seem empty, right?
Yeah, I feel the only thing that might be, I know we're dipping our toes in the movie pool, but I feel like something that might be close is Avengers Endgame and the lead up, from 2007 to whatever 2019 when it ended.
Okay. Yeah.
Only because I had that actual discussion with my son, is that it seems like he likes Star Wars. He likes all the movies that pretty well, that I grew up watching. But I'm like, what is your the time frame you're in? What will be your Star Wars? And he goes, I think what it'll be, what I'm going to pass on to my kids. He goes, it'll be the Avenger, or, obviously the Marvel, the first 4 phases, and Lord of the Rings, he mentioned.
But that's
as
early,
well.
Early 2000s still.
It's true. Yeah, you're right. Nothing lately. Yeah. Oppenheimer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. No, it's Christopher Nolan. I mean, everything he does is fantastic.
Yeah.
But like the 2 greatest trilogies of all time came out between 2000 and 2010 with the Batman trilogy and Lord of the Rings. And Lord of the Rings is by far the greatest trilogy of all time.
All time? I don't know.
I can't think of a trilogy better.
I'm sorry. I'm an 80s guy. And I love Lord of the Rings is a great story for sure. But the
Oh,
trilogy.
you're gonna say the original Star Wars?
No.
No.
I'm saying Back to the Future. Totally.
Future, yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
Back to the Future
Okay,
for
no,
me is the
I-
best trilogy of all time. That movie 2 kind of it was a little bit kind of the gap. I didn't really like the second one as much as the third and the first, but
Yeah.
that's my trilogy in my history. That's the one that I will
That's the
remember
one?
forever.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me recant that. The most epic trilogy of all time. Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
I
Hey,
recant.
that's yours. No, that's and you've got yours, and that's good. You know, Lord of the Rings is yours. Back to the Future. Okay, Greg, what's yours?
Uh,
And that's tough, I know, because
yeah, I know. I, obviously, episodes 4, 5, and 6 was Star Wars. Very, very near and dear. That trilogy. I thought the first 3 Indiana Jones
yeah,
fantastic. Unfortunately, 4 and 5 not quite as good,
No.
but Back to the Future is up there though too.
Yeah.
And Lord of the Rings, that's a whole other story, but I don't know if we talked about this before, but Lord of the Rings, I remember skeptical going to it only because I remember the 1974 77 color one where they mashed it all into one movie.
Oh, the Ralph Bakshi film. So they ran out of money. That's why they didn't continue on. The visuals were cool though.
Oh, absolutely. I still remember the Archer and how great it looked. And I remember going to Fellowship, and Summer and I went to that opening weekend, and I was like, I'm sure it'll be great. Oh, it was fantastic. And then Two Towers. I know a lot of people, it's Return of the King, and that's fantastic as well. But something about Two Towers for me, that's the one. But anyways, I went in with not much expectations, and I remember walking out of the theater going, that was so good.
Yeah.
Fellowship was so good.
yeah.
But you know why you're thinking of the two towers? The battles of Helm's Deep. The Battle of Helm's Deep is one of the greatest battle scenes of all
It's
time.
very good. Yeah.
And Wormtongue is actually one of the most underrated villains of all time.
Yeah.
But I have a place in my heart for Brad Dourif because he's Chucky,
Oh yes, right. Yeah.
and he was also in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he was nominated for an Academy Award for
There
that.
you go.
So
Oh, wow.
Brad Dourif is like one of the most underrated actors of all time, and he's a creepy little guy.
How to keep it PG-13. I appreciate that.
I did. I reeled that back.
That's
I
nice.
pulled it
Good
in.
job, Sean. Well, and that's where we, that's what I love about our conversation right here is because we just named 4 or 5 series that's in our generation that were just epic. And I sure hope our kids are able to do that 20 years from now and say, you remember this. And you remember this, and you remember this. I hope it's not just one series. I hope it's like what we've just discussed here with 5 or 6.
Yeah, and these days they're just remaking stuff from our childhood and then making it worse. And The Running Man is one of the campiest movies ever made, but it's so fun.
It is.
It's such a fun movie, and they're remaking it this year, and I'm worried it's just gonna be trash. But I understand it didn't follow the short story at all, like in name only.
Yeah.
But it's so fun, and the one-liners.
Yeah. Well, Richard
Like
Dawson.
I can't show it to
come
my
on.
kids because it's rated R and they're too
Yeah.
young for it, but I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. I tell you,
Are
there's
we
a
doing-
pile.
How are we doing for time, Jason?
Well, I think we're just about going to wrap it up because I don't want to get
That's
too
okay.
far into another topic. But, gentlemen, that'll give us a segue because we are going to get this more consistent now because we have to. We just have to because this is enjoyable not just for you and for me, but for everyone, I think. And the stories.
And somebody in Slovakia.
Yeah.
We are an international sensation for a couple people.
A sensation might be stretching it a little bit, Sean, but international we are.
I mean, burning yourself on the stove is a sensation, but
I tell you, gentlemen, I love this. I really love doing these because it like takes us right back to when we were teenagers, when we were just living the life. And I sure hope everybody that listens gets to go back with us.
I think that's really the us to see that and see how enjoyable things can be outside of the digital sphere, even though we're on a digital sphere.
Here we are. Yeah.
Here we are.
Yep.
But we're not. It's not 30 seconds. We're 22-minute men. That's what we are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, all right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much again, and we'll catch up in a couple.
Oh man,
Sounds good.
Colorado's
All right.
thrashing the Oilers.
All right, time to power down our old school computers and flip our CDs back into their cases. Thanks for listening to the Gen X Files. Hosted by Jason Blank, Sean Knowles, and Greg Minka. Production assistance from Scott Mitchell. Produced by Blankman Productions. Remember, be kind, rewind. Quick, rewind it! And keep rocking those aviators and Doc Martens.